Rachel's mornings began like clockwork. She moved through the kitchen with precision, the soft hum of the coffee machine filling the silence of the house. The sun streamed in through the large bay windows, casting a golden glow on the meticulously set breakfast table. She placed Nathan's favorite eggs on his plate just as the timer on her phone went off. Everything was perfect, down to the slightly brown toast that he liked exactly so. Nathan walked in, adjusting his tie, his face buried in his phone. "Rachel, the toast is burnt." He sat down, poking the eggs with his fork like a disinterested food critic. Rachel forced a smile. "It's how you like it," she replied, wiping her hands on her apron. In the pit of her stomach, the familiar pang of irritation stirred. This was their daily dance. She'd do her best, and Nathan would find some microscopic flaw to point out. He sighed dramatically, putting his phone down. "You know, Karen's husband mentioned how she's been taking cooking classes. You should try that. Maybe finally get that whole omelet flipping thing down." Rachel stared at him, her hands tightening on the edge of the counter. "Yeah, maybe Karen's husband should mind his own business," she muttered under her breath. "What was that?" Nathan looked up, eyebrows raised. Rachel quickly shook her head. "Oh, nothing. Just thinking about how great it is that you have time to keep up with Karen's culinary education." Nathan didn't notice the sarcasm in her tone as he returned to his phone. "Right? I mean, she really puts in the effort. You could do that if you weren't so busy with your hobby." "Right. My job," Rachel corrected, barely holding back the urge to snap. She walked over to the sink, turning her back to him as she scrubbed a perfectly clean plate. Her job as a graphic designer was something Nathan had dismissed since the day she started it. To him, it was a hobby, something she did to pass the time, not something she loved or was genuinely good at. It was never enough. "I don't know why you even bother with it," Nathan continued, oblivious. "You're not exactly raking in the big bucks, and it's not like you need to work. I'm taking care of everything, aren't I?" Rachel set the plate down and turned, the smile frozen on her face. "You're right. I could just sit around all day, taking up hobbies, like criticizing people who are actually doing things with their lives." Nathan blinked, caught off guard by the sudden shift in her tone. "Whoa, someone woke up on the wrong side of the bed. You sure that toast didn't burn more than just the bread?" Rachel sighed, her frustration simmering just below the surface. "You know what? You're right. The problem is probably the toast." She turned to pour herself another cup of coffee, barely resisting the urge to dump the entire pot on his meticulously styled hair. Nathan, oblivious to the tension, continued scrolling through his phone, probably looking at the latest trends in investments or checking out his LinkedIn. "You really need to relax more," Nathan said, glancing at her over the top of his phone. "Maybe we should do yoga together." "You know Karen. If you mention Karen one more time, Nathan, I swear I will burn more than the toast." Rachel cut in, her voice dangerously calm. He chuckled, seemingly unaware of the rising storm brewing across the kitchen. Okay. Geez, I'm just trying to help." Rachel leaned against the counter, watching him as he went back to his phone, completely absorbed in his own world. She thought back to when they first met, how different he had been, how charming and attentive. Back then, his jokes had been funny, and his criticisms rare. They'd seemed like a perfect match. But now, standing in this quiet, sunny kitchen, she wondered how much of that had been real and how much of it was just the same facade she was forced to wear every day. Her thoughts were interrupted by Nathan suddenly snapping his fingers in the air. "Oh, don't forget to pick up my dry cleaning today. I've got that big meeting tomorrow." Rachel turned to him slowly, her eyebrow raising. "You mean the dry cleaning that I reminded you to pick up twice this week?" Nathan shrugged, taking a bite of his toast. "I'm a busy guy. You're better at that stuff." Rachel's smile became tighter. "Of course, because that's my main job. You know, besides the hobby." As she washed the breakfast dishes, she thought about Sophie's last visit. Sophie had always been able to make her laugh, no matter how bad the day was. She was the kind of friend who could walk into a room and instantly make it brighter. During that last visit, Sophie had cracked a joke about Nathan's need for control. "It's like he's the CEO of micromanaging," she had said, and Rachel had laughed, though the truth behind the joke had hit harder than she'd let on. You deserve better, Rach, Sophie had said, more seriously. You're not a Stepford wife. You're Rachel. Remember that. Standing in her kitchen now, Rachel thought about that. She thought about the woman she used to be, before Nathan's constant criticism had worn her down. A woman who had dreams beyond perfectly browned toast and dry cleaning schedules. Maybe it was time to remember her. Nathan glanced at his watch and stood up, grabbing his briefcase. I'll be home late. Don't wait up. Sure. Wouldn't want to mess up the toast in the morning, Rachel said, her tone light, but her heart heavy. As the door closed behind him, Rachel finally exhaled. She stood there in the quiet of the kitchen, the golden morning light no longer feeling so warm. Perfect facade, my ass, she muttered, finally allowing herself a moment of honesty. It was just the beginning of a day like any other, but Rachel knew something had shifted. Maybe it was the toast, maybe it was Sophie's words, or maybe she was just tired of pretending. Whatever it was, she knew deep down that this perfect facade wasn't going to hold much longer. It was one of those gloomy afternoons that made you feel like the world was wrapped in a damp gray blanket. Rachel sat on the couch, staring at the rain as it ran down the window in thin streaks, like it was mocking her ability to keep her life on track. She knew Nathan wouldn't be home for hours, which was both a relief and a reminder of just how empty her days had become. The doorbell rang, cutting through her thoughts. Rachel stood up slowly, setting down the coffee she hadn't really been drinking, and walked to the door. When she opened it, there was Sophie, her oldest and most outspoken friend, holding a brightly colored umbrella and a mischievous grin. Rainy day special. One soggy friend and a bucket of bad jokes, Sophie announced, stepping inside before Rachel could even offer a proper greeting. Rachel smiled despite herself. You're lucky I'm desperate for company. Pash? Desperate? Honey, I'm the best thing that's happened to you all week, and you know it, Sophie said, tossing her umbrella into the corner and making a beeline for the couch. She plopped down, kicking off her wet shoes. I mean, look at me. I bring the party. And by party, I mean I bring myself, which is basically the same thing. Rachel sat down next to her, tucking her legs beneath her. Yeah, well, I've got some leftover party mix from last Christmas if you want to complete the scene. Perfect. Nothing says rock bottom like eating stale Chex Mix while it's pouring outside. So what's up with you? You've got that I hate everything, but I'm too polite to admit it look on your face. Rachel sighed, glancing toward the window. Oh, you know, the usual. Nathan being Nathan. Works fine, but it's hard to focus when you're constantly wondering if you forgot to fluff the pillows just right or burn the toast. Sophie gave her a knowing look, the humor dropping from her face for a moment. He's still writing you about that stuff. I thought we were past the whole 1950s housewife thing. Tell me he didn't comment on your toast again. No, it was eggs this time. Apparently, I'm overcooking his yolks. That's the crisis of the week, Rachel said with a tight smile. Sophie snorted. Oh no, call Fina. Someone get this man his perfect egg, or civilization as we know it might collapse. Rachel couldn't help but laugh. That was Sophie's magic. She could turn even the most miserable situation into something worth laughing about. But the laughter quickly faded, replaced by the same old frustration and a feeling of being trapped. I don't know, Soph. I just feel like I'm living in this bubble where nothing I do is ever right. And the worst part is, I used to think I could make him happy if I just tried harder, you know. Sophie raised an eyebrow, leaning back against the couch. Tried harder? Girl, you've bent over backward more times than an Olympic gymnast. At this point, it's not about you trying harder. It's about him realizing he's being a complete. Rachel raised her hand to stop her. I know. I feel stuck. Sophie leaned forward, resting her hand on Rachel's knee. Listen, you've always been the strong one. Even back in college, you were the one keeping everything together. But just because you're strong doesn't mean you have to keep carrying all this weight. You deserve more than being treated like an underpaid intern in your own life. Rachel bit her lip, Sophie's words hitting harder than she expected. It's just complicated. I mean, what am I supposed to do? Walk out because he doesn't like my cooking. Sophie gave her an exaggerated look of disbelief. Oh please, we both know this is about more than eggs, Ratch. This is about him controlling you, piece by piece, until you're so small you can't even see the woman you used to be. She paused, softening her tone. Remember when we used to talk about traveling the world, going to Paris, starting a business, doing something crazy? What happened to that Rachel? The one who didn't care what anyone thought. Rachel swallowed, the familiar sting of nostalgia creeping in. She's somewhere, just buried under a pile of laundry and Nathan's opinions. Sophie gave her a playful nudge. Well, we better go find her before she's stuck in there forever. And seriously, if I have to stage an intervention with a bottle of wine and a plane ticket to Vegas, I will. Rachel smiled, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. Thanks, but I don't know if a Vegas escape plan is in the cards right now. I need time. Time's fine, Sophie said, leaning back again. But don't take too long. Because you know what happens when you wait around too much? You turn into one of those women who end up on a reality show called Sad Wives of Suburbia. And I'm pretty sure I'd get kicked out of your life for making fun of you too much. Rachel laughed again, this time more genuinely. Okay. No reality TV breakdowns for me. But you're right. I need to think about what I really want. For me, not for him. Sophie gave a firm nod, her humor replaced with genuine care. That's my girl. And if you ever need a break from that walking stress ball you call a husband, you know where to find me. I've got wine, terrible TV, and a whole box of stale party mix with your name on it. Rachel shook her head, grinning. You're a terrible influence. Yeah, well, somebody's gotta be. Sophie stood up, grabbing her umbrella from the corner. Just promise me one thing, Rach. Promise me you won't wait forever to figure this out. You deserve a life, not a life sentence. Rachel nodded, feeling something shift inside her. I promise. As Sophie left, the rain still falling softly outside, Rachel sat back down on the couch, her mind swirling with thoughts. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she had permission to question the life she was living. Maybe it wasn't about Nathan's eggs or the way he micromanaged every aspect of her existence. Maybe it was about something much bigger, something she had been too afraid to face. But now, sitting in the quiet house, Sophie's words echoed in her mind. She deserved more. She deserved to be Rachel again, not just the wife who couldn't get breakfast right. She stared out at the rain, her thoughts clearing as the storm passed outside. Maybe it was time to find the woman she used to be, before Nathan's opinions and expectations had buried her. And maybe, just maybe, that woman wasn't as far away as she thought. The turning point came on a day that started out as uneventful as any other. Rachel was in her home office, trying to focus on her latest graphic design project, but her thoughts kept drifting back to her conversation with Sophie. Every word Sophie had said about Nathan's control was ringing in her head, and Rachel found herself questioning things she'd never questioned before. Her train of thought was interrupted by the ping of Nathan's phone. He had left it charging on the dining room table, a rare occurrence given his usual obsession with privacy. Rachel wouldn't normally snoop, but something about the way the phone kept lighting up with email notifications tugged at her curiosity. She stood, walking over to the table and hesitating for a moment before picking up the phone. It was unlocked, a small miracle in itself. Rachel bit her lip, glancing around the empty house like she might get caught by some invisible force. Then she opened the email app. Oh my God, she muttered to herself, scrolling through message after message. At first, it was just the usual work stuff, boring corporate speak about investments and market trends. But then she saw it. An email thread discussing something far more serious. Financial mismanagement. Nathan's name appeared several times in a conversation about funds being funneled into a private account. This wasn't just a misstep. It looked like outright fraud. Her heart pounded in her chest. She had always known Nathan liked to play with money like it was Monopoly cash. But this was dangerous. She quickly scrolled through the emails, taking screenshots of the important ones and sending them to her own phone. If this was what she thought it was, she had more power in her hands than she ever imagined. Well, Looks like somebody's not just a control freak. He's a full-blown financial criminal, she muttered to herself with a mix of disbelief and dark humor. Just as she finished, the front door clicked open. Rachel jumped, her heart nearly leaping out of her chest as Nathan walked in. She hurriedly set his phone back on the table and tried to look casual as she returned to her laptop. Nathan breezed in like he hadn't just given her a reason to consider witness protection. "Hey babe, you look busy. How's the whatever it is you do?" He waved vaguely toward her laptop, as if the concept of graphic design was too abstract for him to grasp. Rachel swallowed hard, forcing a smile. "Oh, just designing things. For people, like I do." Nathan nodded absently, already walking toward his phone. He picked it up, glancing at the screen. Weird. Thought I had a few more emails this morning." Rachel froze, but Nathan didn't seem suspicious. He shrugged and slipped the phone into his pocket, leaning down to kiss her on the cheek. "I'm heading out to meet the guys for a drink after work, so don't wait up." Rachel turned her head slightly, avoiding his kiss. "Sure, have fun." As soon as Nathan left the house, Rachel exhaled a long, shaky breath. Her mind was racing. She had uncovered something huge, but what did it mean for her? She could use this information. No, she had to use it. But she needed to be smart about it. She quickly dialed Sophie's number, her hands shaking as she pressed the phone to her ear. "Yo, what's up, Buttercup?" Sophie's voice was as lighthearted as ever, the casual greeting making Rachel feel momentarily calmer. "Sophie, I think I just uncovered something." "Big," Rachel said, her voice a mix of excitement and fear. "Like Nathan's a crook, and I've got the receipts big." There was a pause on the other end of the line, and then Sophie's voice dropped an octave. "Wait, what? You're telling me Mr. Perfect Toast Critic is also a fraudster?" "Girl spill. What did you find?" Rachel explained everything, from the emails to her suspicion that Nathan had been hiding money for who knows how long. Sophie listened in stunned silence, then finally let out a low whistle. "Wow. Just wow. I mean, I knew the guy was a jerk, but I didn't peg him for the Wolf of Wall Street variety of jerk." She paused, then added with a laugh, "Guess it's a good thing he's been so focused on your toast all this time. Keeps the SEC off his back." Rachel groaned, but couldn't help laughing at Sophie's absurd humor. "I don't even know what to do with this. I mean, this is my out, right? I've got leverage now." "Leverage? Girl, you've got a golden ticket out of Crazy Town. But you've got to be careful. Nathan's not the type to just roll over and say, 'Oops, my bad,' when you call them out on this. He'll fight dirty, trust me." Rachel knew Sophie was right. Nathan had a temper, and he didn't like losing, especially not to her. "Yeah, I know, but I can't just sit here and do nothing. I can't keep living like this." "Dan right you can't," Sophie agreed. "But you need a plan, like a legit get the hell out of Dodge plan. And maybe a lawyer, a really good one." Rachel nodded, even though Sophie couldn't see her. "I've been thinking about that. I'll start looking tomorrow." Sophie's voice softened. "Look, Rach, whatever happens, you know I've got your back, right? We'll get you through this, toast and all." Rachel smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest that she hadn't felt in a long time. "Thanks, Soph. I needed to hear that." "Anytime. And hey, if you need a place to crash, my couch is open. I mean, it's lumpy as hell, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, but it's better than staying with Captain Fraudpence." Rachel laughed again, feeling a little lighter. "I'll keep that in mind. And Sophie?" "Yeah, thanks. For everything." Sophie's voice was cheerful but sincere. "What are best friends for? Now go kick some corporate criminal butt, and maybe burn his toast tomorrow, just for fun." After hanging up, Rachel sat in silence for a moment, letting the gravity of the situation sink in. She had stumbled onto something huge, and now she had the power to change everything. The Rachel who had quietly endured Nathan's condescension and manipulation for years was gone. In her place was a woman who wasn't just going to sit back and take it anymore. It wasn't going to be easy, and Nathan wasn't going to make it easy. But for the first time in a long time, Rachel felt like she had control over her life, her future, and the outcome of whatever came next. And maybe, just maybe, she'd burn that toast tomorrow after all, just for the satisfaction of watching Nathan squirm. Summer was creeping in, and with it came the suffocating heat of expectation. Nathan, in one of his rare good husband moods, had suggested they take a beach vacation. To recharge, he'd said. Rachel knew what that meant. Sunburns, overpriced cocktails, and being forced to smile while Nathan subtly boasted to strangers about his success. But this time, something was different. Rachel had a secret, a plan. And that knowledge changed everything. They'd arrived at the resort in one of those towns where every building was painted in some shade of pastel, the sky perpetually Instagram-worthy. Nathan was in high spirits, already mingling with people at the bar, telling his classic funny stories that made her roll her eyes. Rachel sat under a large beach umbrella, her eyes hidden behind oversized sunglasses, her mind buzzing with thoughts of escape. Nathan wandered over, drink in hand, looking out at the ocean with a grin. Beautiful, isn't it? Just what we needed. Rachel tilted her head slightly, peering at him from behind her sunglasses. Yeah, just what we needed. Another trip where I get to watch you network while pretending we're on vacation. Nathan laughed, missing the sarcasm entirely. Come on, Rach, it's not all work. We'll have fun. Besides, I'm sure Karen and her husband will be here next week. You two can do whatever it is you do. He waved his hand dismissively, as though her existence outside of his orbit was an afterthought. Rachel sipped her drink, feeling the weight of the envelope she'd hidden in her suitcase. It was the lawyer's retainer and the list of everything she needed to take care of when they got back. Bank accounts to close, personal items to retrieve. Nathan didn't know it yet, but this was their last vacation together. Later that night, they had dinner at one of those overpriced beachfront restaurants where the seafood is fresh, but the service is slow enough to make you question your life choices. Nathan, naturally, was in his element, engaging with the waitstaff like they were all characters in a sitcom, except he was the star. Rachel played along, but her mind was elsewhere. She'd been going over the plan all day, and the more she thought about it, the clearer it became. She was done. Nathan took a bite of his lobster, his face lighting up like he'd just won the lottery. Mom, this is it. This is why we came here. They don't make lobster like this back home. We could move here, you know. You wouldn't have to worry about your little design thing. Just imagine. Tropical life, sunshine, no worries. Rachel clenched her fork. Right, because giving up everything and living as a full-time beach wife sounds like a dream. Her voice dripped with sarcasm. But as usual, Nathan didn't catch it. He chuckled, wiping his mouth with a napkin. Exactly. That's the spirit. You'd love it after a while. Rachel set her fork down, taking a breath. Nathan, can I ask you something? And I need you to actually listen this time. Nathan looked up from his lobster, his expression neutral, but Rachel could see the flicker of annoyance in his eyes. Sure. What's on your mind? Rachel leaned forward, her voice steady but firm. When's the last time you asked me what I want? Not what's convenient for you, not what fits into your plan. What I actually want. Nathan blinked, clearly caught off guard. He leaned back in his chair, frowning. What do you mean? I thought we were in this together. You like this stuff, don't you? The trips, the dinners, the lifestyle. You've got everything you could want. Rachel laughed, actually laughed. It was short and sharp, and it seemed to throw Nathan even more off balance. Do I? Nathan, I've spent years trying to convince myself that this is what I want, that your idea of a perfect life is something I could fit into. But the truth is, I've been shrinking myself down for so long that I don't even know who I am anymore. Nathan set his drink down, his expression turning from confusion to irritation. So what? You're unhappy? That's what you're telling me? Because I've done everything I can to make sure you're taken care of. I've given you a life most people would kill for. Rachel shook her head, her voice calm. You've given me a life that suits you, but I'm done pretending that it works for me. Nathan scoffed, leaning forward. Rachel, this is ridiculous. You're talking like some college kid who's rebelling against the system. You're not a kid anymore. This is real life. It's not about getting everything you want all the time. Sometimes you have to compromise. Compromise? Rachel's voice grew sharper. Nathan, you don't know the first thing about compromise. Compromise isn't me giving up everything while you sit there, comfortable and in control. It's not you deciding how things go, and me quietly falling in line. Nathan's face flushed, a rare sight. You've been watching too many of those women's empowerment shows, haven't you? You're letting this modern feminist crap get into your head. Rachel stared at him, a small, incredulous smile on her lips. You really don't get it, do you? This isn't some phase. I'm leaving Nathan. I've already hired a lawyer. When we get back, it's over. For the first time, Nathan looked genuinely surprised. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Finally, he managed, "You're joking, right? Rachel, don't be ridiculous. You can't just walk away. We have a life together. We have plans." Rachel leaned back in her chair, her arms crossed. "No, Nathan, you had plans. You'd never asked if they were mine too." Nathan's expression hardened. "So that's it? You're just going to throw everything away because you've decided you're not happy. That's not how life works, Rachel." Rachel sighed, standing up and picking up her purse. "You're right, Nathan. That's not how your life works. But it's how mine's going to from now on." Nathan started to say something, but Rachel didn't wait to hear it. She turned and walked away from the table, her heart pounding but her mind clear. For years, she had been waiting for the right moment, the right time to make her move. She had thought it would feel terrifying. But as she stepped out into the warm night air, she felt a strange sense of peace. Sure, there was a lot to figure out when they got back. How she'd manage the house, what the divorce proceedings would be like, what Nathan might try to do to stop her. But that wasn't what mattered right now. What mattered was that for the first time in years, Rachel had made a decision for herself. And that decision was to reclaim her life. She walked down the beach, the waves crashing softly against the shore, the breeze lifting her hair. Maybe Nathan would never understand what had changed. But that was okay. This wasn't about him anymore. As she wandered toward the water, her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from Sophie popped up. "Did you do it yet? Or are you still trapped in Nathan's funhouse of misery?" Rachel smiled, typing back quickly. "I did it. Told him it's over. Now enjoying a peaceful post-breakup beach walk." Sophie's reply was immediate. "Damn girl. You're a badass. Be careful though. Nathan seems like the kind of guy who'd cry over spilled lobster." Rachel chuckled, tucking her phone back into her pocket. It wasn't going to be easy, but she had made her choice. And for the first time in a long time, Rachel felt like she was the one steering her own life. As she looked out at the horizon, she felt a sense of possibility she hadn't felt in years. The waves kept rolling in, one after the other, just like life. But now she was ready to dive in, to take the plunge into the unknown, because anything was better than staying stuck in the shallow waters of a life that wasn't her own. The day Rachel walked out of her house, she felt a strange mix of terror and exhilaration. Her suitcase rolled behind her, the wheels making a soft clicking noise as they crossed the driveway. She paused for a moment, glancing back at the place she had called home for so many years. It looked the same as ever. Perfectly manicured lawn, freshly painted shutters, the kind of house that screamed, "Everything's fine here." But now, Rachel could see it for what it was, a cage. She didn't look back again. As she reached her car, she slid into the driver's seat and let out a long, shaky breath. Her phone buzzed in the cup holder, and she smiled when she saw Sophie's name on the screen. "You still alive? Or has Nathan locked you in the basement?" Sophie's text read. Rachel chuckled, texting back, "Still alive. Leaving now. If I'm not at your place in an hour, assume he's strapped me to the roof of his Tesla and is driving me into the ocean." Sophie replied almost immediately, "Good. I've got wine, tacos, and a playlist called Freedom Songs for Badass Women. See you soon." Rachel smiled to herself, tossing the phone onto the passenger seat. With one last glance at the house, she turned the key in the ignition and pulled out of the driveway. She was free. The drive to Sophie's felt like the longest hour of her life, even though it was only 40 minutes. Every song that came on the radio seemed to have some deeper meaning. I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor, Shake It Off by Taylor Swift, even Free Bird by Lynyrd Skynyrd. At one point, she actually laughed out loud because the universe apparently had a wicked sense of humor. When she finally pulled into Sophie's driveway, her friend was already waiting at the door, waving wildly like she was trying to flag down a plane. There she is! Sophie yelled, running down the front steps as Rachel got out of the car. The woman of the hour! How does it feel to be a free woman? Better than your first margarita, right? Rachel grinned, slamming the car door. Honestly? A little like I just jumped out of an airplane without a parachute. But maybe there's a margarita waiting for me at the bottom, so I'm holding out hope. Sophie threw her arms around Rachel in a dramatic hug, squeezing her tightly. Girl, you just did the bravest thing I've ever seen. And I've seen you at karaoke night after 3 tequila shots, so that's saying something. Rachel snorted, shaking her head as they headed inside. You always know how to keep things in perspective. Inside, Sophie's house was exactly what Rachel needed. It was cozy, warm, and smelled like takeout tacos, which was better than any candle scent she could think of. On the coffee table was a giant bottle of wine, 2 glasses, and a pile of napkins printed with the words, "You got this," in glittery letters. You really went all out, didn't you? Rachel said, eyeing the setup. Please, this is the bare minimum for a post-divorce celebration. You've been dealing with Nathan's nonsense for too long. Time to shake that off with some carbs and Beyoncé, Sophie said, grabbing the remote to start the playlist. Rachel flopped down onto the couch, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. I can't believe I actually did it. I'm really free. Sophie handed her a taco and a glass of wine. And the best part, you don't have to pretend to care about toast anymore. Rachel laughed, nearly choking on her taco. Oh my God, the toast. The endless debates about how to make the perfect toast. What kind of psychopath cares that much about toast? Nathan. Nathan cares that much about toast, Sophie said, shaking her head. And that is reason enough to never look back. You're free now, babe. No more toast tyranny. Rachel sipped her wine, letting the warmth of it settle into her bones. It feels weird, you know, like I'm supposed to be sad or something. But I'm not. I feel lighter. Like I've been carrying this invisible backpack full of bricks, and I just took it off. Sophie nodded, taking a huge bite of her taco. Makes sense. You've been carrying the weight of Nathan's ego for years. That thing's gotta be at least a couple 100 pounds. Rachel snorted. Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't throw my back out. I think I finally understand why so many women get into yoga, just trying to survive the weight of their husband's expectations. They both laughed, and for the first time in years, Rachel felt like she could actually breathe. There was no pressure to be perfect, no need to tiptoe around someone else's fragile ego. Here in Sophie's living room, with cheesy music playing and tacos on the table, Rachel was free to just be. So what's next? Sophie asked, refilling Rachel's wine glass. I mean, besides eating your weight in tacos and filing for divorce. Rachel thought about it for a moment, staring into her wine. I don't know. I think I just need some time to figure things out. Maybe I'll take a trip. Go somewhere Nathan would have hated. Like, I don't know, a national park or something. Somewhere with no Wi-Fi so I can actually think. Sophie raised her glass. I like the sound of that. Disconnect from the world. Reconnect with yourself. And hey, if you decide to go full eat, pray, love, and move to Italy, just promise you'll send me postcards. Rachel clinked her glass against Sophie's. Deal. But only if you promise to come visit me so we can drink too much wine and annoy the locals. Oh, I'm so there. We'll be the reason they ban Americans from the country, Sophie said, grinning. Rachel leaned back into the couch, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. For the first time, her future wasn't something she dreaded. It was something she could shape, mold, and fill with whatever she wanted. She wasn't Rachel, the wife who couldn't make perfect toast. She was Rachel, the woman who had found her voice, her freedom, and her life. As Beyoncé's Run the World, Girls, blared from the speakers, Rachel smiled. She had done it. She had broken free from the cage, And now, the world was hers to explore. And maybe, just maybe, she'd never make another piece of toast again.